Welcome to the campaign strategy section of my Greenskin race guide. This part will focus on campaign gameplay and strategy for the Greenskins, including starting out, later expansion, and the different sub-factions. Disclaimer, this guide is based on my personal experiences and opinions and is by no means the definitive way to play the Greenskins in Mortal Empires. If you have a different strategy or want to add something to mine, please leave a comment down below. Now that's out of the way, let's get into the video. It's also worth noting that my voice is completely gone because I have a cold, so apologies for that. When playing as the Greenskins, you have the choice of 3 factions, and even though they are very similar, there are some differences that you should know about before you make your choice to ensure you're getting the most out of every playthrough. For the purposes of this guide, I played as the Greenskins since they are the original faction added in Warhammer 1 at launch. They start at Black Crag and are initially at war with the Red Fangs. It's not the most challenging war, provided that you continually build your army after each battle and raid where you can to keep your money and replenishment topped up. Once I'd taken their final settlement, I could refocus my attention to the north to take on all the dwarf factions. I started to make diplomacy with all the other Greenskin tribes so that I could eventually confederate them. This was actually quite easy to do compared to some of the other factions, and most of the tribes were quite weak and so very willing to join me before long. As I learned when I played the dwarves, they are incredibly strong against the Greenskins and their garrisons can be super tough once they get to the first level. So when I moved my attention to taking them on, I knew I was in for an uphill battle. They were actively coming for me too, so it was a real war of opportunity. They would take one of my settlements and I'd get behind them and take one of theirs in return. The underway was essential in taking them on, as it allowed me to navigate the terrain much quicker than normal, while being harder for the AI to track. It took me quite a few turns and a lot of back and forth, but eventually I got to their capital and laid siege with 2 armies and 2 wargs. And still, the balance of power was only just in my favour. They managed to get a confederation with Zufbar while I was sieging them, so they began building more of a defence to the north once I'd taken their capital. I of course chased them up there as soon as I could to make sure they couldn't build much of a defence before I got there. It took me a few more turns, but once my armies got to the north, I managed to easily surround them and stomp out the remnants of their faction. After this, there were only a few smaller dwarf realms remaining, so I set about getting rid of them, which was pretty easy for the most part as they only had a few settlements each. The main problem I faced at this stage was how tough Ungrim's capital was, since he had a full garrison and a stack. I managed to get around this issue by leaving a nearby settlement undefended to draw him out, so I could take his capital before he had time to react. After that, it was just a matter of chasing him to the much smaller and weaker settlement he had just taken to rid of him for good. The only remaining dwarf realm nearby was to my south, so I began sending all my armies down to take care of them. At this time, the last defenders decided to start attacking me and taking 1 or 2 of my undefended settlements, which, I don't know about you guys, but I thought was just pretty damn rude. So now I had to fight 2 wars at the same time, which was actually alright since it's where the Greenskins really thrive when they have to fight battles over and over again. I managed to split my armies between fighting off the lizards and taking out the minor dwarf faction, and before long, I had managed to take out the dwarves and push the lizards back to their lands. As I continued to push south, I realised that Skarsnik and the Crooked Moon had been taken out, and since I wanted a chance to use every legendary lord, I started forcing a rebellion in the place I'd last seen him to force the faction back into the game. It took quite a while, but I let him take one of my settlements before forcing peace and following the steps to work up to a confederation. While all this was happening, I was still chasing Krokgar into the south, which proved to be much more work than it was worth, since it turns out orcs don't really like the desert. Replenishment was a nightmare even when raiding or sitting in a settlement, so I had to keep sending armies back and forth to get their health back, which was really rough on the fightiness. I somehow managed to push through and get a few wargs, which helped me push them all the way to their capital, where I finally took them out and had my first brief moment of peace. A few turns later, the entire super alliance of good factions declared war on me. But this is what I'd consider the endgame, so I'll end the walkthrough here, as it's really unlike any regular campaign gameplay, and it would also take me a month to finish this war, and we all know how long my breaks can be if I let myself miss a week. As I mentioned before, there are 3 choices of faction when playing as the Greenskins. The Greenskins, who I picked, start at Black Crag. Crooked Moon start at Karak Azgaraz, and have access to a unique building chain at Karak 8 Peaks, and finally, the Bloody Hands start at Ekrund, and can build savage orc recruitment buildings anywhere in the world. All 3 factions have the same climate preferences of wasteland, savanna and mountains being suitable, temperate, frozen, desert and jungle being unpleasant, and ocean, chaotic wasteland, magical forest and temperate island being uninhabitable. All of the factions can make huge amounts from raiding from their raiding camp stance, which allows them to raid while they replenish and not suffer any debuffs in battle from it. It's also worth noting that Greenskins can make a huge amount of money from raiding, as they get more money than usual, which can then be upgraded in the Lord's skill trees, allowing you to field many more armies than your economy would normally allow. Fightiness is the level of aggression that the army has, and it's built by raiding and winning battles, as well as some events, and is lost by losing battles or inactivity. The standard tier offers no benefits, but the highest tier causes wargs. These are armies that spawn and help their mother army with whatever they're doing, unless given another target. The mother army needs to have at least 17 units in it to be able to spawn a warg, and the spawned army itself will be almost a full stack by itself. Lower tiers of fightiness causes attrition of different severities, depending on how low it gets. You can fix this issue by forcing the fightiness up at the cost of suffering some heavy casualties in one hit. Personally, I'd rather just get them in a fight to raise this, but it's still a valid option if you have nothing immediately close. All armies also have access to the underways, which is basically a much faster way of navigating difficult terrain by using underground tunnels. This means you will be able to travel within a set distance in any direction, but it does have some drawbacks. No matter how far you move, it will take up your entire move range for that turn. You can also be intercepted by nearby enemy armies, and if you lose, you will not be able to escape and lose the entire army. Resource buildings work a little differently for these guys. Since they can't trade, the resources are instead used to give bonuses to your entire faction in the form of increases to recruit rank and decreases to recruit costs to certain units. They also suffer from very weak garrisons with very few ranged units and nothing massively elite to hold your settlements. This means that if you are under attack and you want to save your settlements, you'll need to have armies there, otherwise they won't last long. As I mentioned in my walkthrough, many of the good factions in the game will not like you at all, so you do want to be wary of them ganging up on you and maybe make some alliances of your own just in case. In my game, I also noticed that my reliability was very hard to recover once it had dropped. I don't know if this is something specific I did, or it's just how the faction is, but either way it's worth noting. Finally, we have the commandments. The orcs only have access to 3, no doubt they will get more when they get their overhaul. Give It Here grants plus 5% income, and I found it was best used when a region reached max size and had no public order issues, or just when I needed the extra cash. Brag About the Boss grants minus 5% recruitment cost and plus 1 to the local recruitment capacity, and is of course best used when you're trying to raise some armies. Finally, Camp Ruckus grants plus 2 public order and plus 20 growth, and is best used in a newly acquired province to encourage faster growth and negate some of the effects of provincial instability. That concludes this section of the guide on campaign strategy. The next section will cover the unit roster and how I believe each unit is best used, so stay tuned for that. Don't forget to vote on the poll for the next race you want me to make a guide for, which is linked in the description and the comments. If you want to check out the other parts of this or any other guide, there's a link in the card and in the description for a playlist to the series. If you enjoy this video at any point, then please do consider leaving it a like, as it really does help out a lot. And if you want to see more of this type of video, maybe click that subscribe button so you stay up to date. After all, it is free. For now though, I was COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I'll see you next turn.